council block. They have had to move from their two-bedroom flat to this workshop room lent by a friend. They're following government advice on what to do if nuclear war threatens. Everyone living above the third floor has been told to move. Over the years, the Home Office has released various booklets to householders on what to do in the event of a nuclear war. Protect and Survive is the latest of these booklets and would be distributed free to every household in the likelihood of nuclear war. In the foreword it tells us, "If Britain is attacked by nuclear bombs or by missiles, we do not know what targets will be chosen or how severe the assault will be." The booklet anticipates moving people from high-rise blocks and bungalows and caravans into nearby, more protected accommodation. But the message for most of us is that when anywhere is as likely or unlikely to be a target for a nuclear strike as anywhere else, stay at home. But the advice following this contains a veiled threat. If you leave, your local authority may take your empty house for others to use, so stay at home. When the film The War Game was made, however, the government's home defence plans included a policy to evacuate women, children, the elderly and sick away from the most likely target areas to safer areas. Now the policy is stay put. Apart from this, the advice contained to Protect and Survive is much the same and just as ludicrous as it was when the film The War Game was made in the early 60s. Make a lean-to with sloping doors, protected with bags or boxes of earth and sand. Or, if you're unfortunate enough to be caught out in the open, lie flat in a ditch and cover the exposed skin of head and hands. The advice to the public to stay at home is reinforced by government plans to blockade essential service routes in the run-up to war. As the Police Home Defence Manual suggests, traffic problems could be created by people ignoring advice and control of people on foot and by public transport might arise. Advice in Protect and Survive leaves very little to choice. In answer to criticism, the government reply on behalf of civil defence says that it is money well spent if it shows people how they can safeguard themselves and their families. The enormous expense of providing shelters to every family in the land could not be justified. The risk of war is at present considered so slight. In contrast, the system of government which would bring us to nuclear war has prepared very detailed plans for its survival. These plans are not available to the public, but are contained in a mass of Home Office and Scottish Home and Health Department circulars, many of them marked restricted. The simple and unflustered picture of shelter building in summer clothes and Protect and Survive is not part of these plans. Here, the devastation of targets, ports and industrial centres, for example, have a place in the calculations. These circulars are just a small part from the mountain of reports of meetings, notifications of duties of government and roles for local government officials. The smooth functioning of the legal system would not be clogged up with juries or the right of appeal. The country would be in the hands of officials, almost without exception, from local, national and judicial bureaucracies. To make sure the economy was able to work as they wished, these people could order the rest of us about as they saw fit, withholding food to those who do not readily comply. But the great attraction of the post-nuclear world for the civil servant would be the opportunity to start from scratch. And in some circulars, there is barely restraint in the detailed imaginings of an economy ruled by financial advisors drawn from the Treasury and the private sector. In the event of nuclear war, Scotland will get Home Rule, not from any elected assembly in Glasgow or Edinburgh, but from nearby Kirknewton. The extensive plans for home defence have resulted in a number of buildings for this hidden government. For while the threat of nuclear war is considered so slight that a table or door is adequate for most of us, 6 feet walls of concrete protect the survival of a ruling elite. Here, at Kirknewton, this anonymous and outwardly scruffy building would become the centre for government in Scotland. Scottish central control. Like the plans for home and civil defence, much of the bunker is hidden, extending below ground. From here, some 200 or 300 people, sealed from the outside world, would have absolute power over law and order, the distribution of food, the provision of medical aid, over life and death in post-nuclear Scotland. Only one elected representative would be allowed into this secret government to fill the post of Scottish Commissioner, a post at present held by George Younger. Alongside the Scottish Commissioner would sit Sir David Scott Barrett, commanding the armed forces deployed throughout Scotland. Alongside Sir David, Sir Edward Frizzell would administer the surviving police forces in Scotland. Assisting them, senior civil servants from most government departments, chiefs from the fire service, top executives from oil, gas, coal and the electricity industries, from the building industry and water authorities. In addition, a few chosen scientific advisors to analyse data and fallout conditions. And to exercise control of communications, selected journalists to operate a wartime broadcasting service. Scottish central control at Kirknewton is at the centre of a web extending its post-nuclear command through Scotland, dividing Scotland into 3 zones. Northern zone includes Fife, Grampian, Highland, Tayside, Orkney, Shetland and the Western Isles. Western zone contains Central, Dumfries and Galloway and Strathclyde. Eastern zone is the Lothian and Borders regions. Each zone has its own wartime headquarters. Troy Wood, near Anstruther, is the zone headquarters for the Northern Zone. East Kilbride houses the zone headquarters for Western Zone. And for Eastern Zone, the headquarters is at Barnton Quarry in Edinburgh. The staffing arrangements for the zone headquarters represent a slightly less illustrious group to that found at Scottish Central Control at Kirknewton. Located deep inside the old Barnton Quarry, this former RAF early warning radar station became a government wartime bunker in 1961. Equipped with water, oil, food supplies and its own electricity generator, the Zone Commissioner, Chiefs of Police, Army officers and senior civil servants would provide regional government for the Eastern Zone. Unlike Kirknewton, the Zone Commissioner would not be an elected representative, but a civil servant. The eyes and ears of the system, commanded by the Zone Commissioners and Scottish Commissioner, immediately after an attack, are provided by a voluntary body, the Royal Observer Corps. Originally set up as wartime plane spotters, now they have the task of monitoring the nuclear strikes and the pattern of fallout that would follow. Dotted in 872 bunkers throughout Britain, many resemble this one near Turnhouse. In well-protected boxes, instruments to monitor the distance and predict the strength of a nuclear explosion feed information to the volunteers below, who pass this on to the 25 group controls and the 5 sector controls of the ROC. Instruments for detecting fallout and checking wind speeds and direction enable a pattern of drift to be estimated for the highly dangerous fallout as it begins to settle in the first 48 hours after the explosions. The ROC posts are independent of public services, and each is equipped with generator, sanitation and ventilation, so that the crew can survive a long period in areas of high radioactivity. The flimsy telephone line at this ROC post is the weakest link in the chain of communication systems used in the Home Defence Network. Underground telephone cables linking the zone and Scottish controls